20 years ago, if you said you read self-help or philosophy books, there would only be one reaction. Nerd. Nowadays, this only happens if you read philosophy. But if you find yourself growing uninspired by the repetitive advice found in your self-help book collection, then perhaps it's time to embrace your inner nerd and embark on a journey into philosophy. My name is David, and welcome to my channel where I delve into all things self-improvement. While philosophy and self-help may seem distinct, they both share a common goal: to improve our lives and develop our understanding of the world. So why do many of us shun the ancient texts of philosophy and instead pick up whichever book promises a quick fix to becoming rich? For a start, philosophy books don't have a catchy title like The Stoic Billionaire, How to Care Less But Have More. Part of the problem is that philosophy has this image of being impractical because it's an exploration of life's big questions like the nature of existence, morality, and free will. This leads to thought experiments like imagining a demon manipulating your physical senses, which understandably puts people off. On the other hand, self-help is seen as providing practical strategies and advice for personal success. Books, seminars, and programs offer step-by-step guidance on topics like goal setting, habit building, and becoming a millionaire. There are two questions to consider here. Firstly, what is the common ground of philosophy and self-help? And secondly, how can philosophical theories be applied practically to your self-improvement goals? The most fundamental part of self-help for me is the need for critical thinking. The self part emphasizes exactly how many adults are trying to improve themselves. Because unlike when we were younger and in school, there is no curriculum set out before us and no guide telling us what we need to work at. We're on our own. This means that we have to develop critical thinking, to objectively analyse ourselves, our techniques and goals in a way that can help us work out what is effective. And there's no better way to improve your critical thinking than to read philosophy, because this is one of the core pillars of the subject. In a philosophy debate, you can't get away with just talking over your opponent or trying to flummox them like in political debates or disagreements with your friends. Your arguments are laid out to bear in the cold light of day and will be picked apart down to the last detail over time. Just like in self-help, you can't just lie to yourself that you're doing great. The results will be glaringly evident when examined objectively. If your habits aren't aligning with your goals or failing to move you forward, the evidence will be unmistakable. Therefore, it's key that you analyse things using critical thinking to see what's working and what isn't without any bias. You'll never improve yourself if you don't have this ability to step back and guide yourself through the process with honesty and objectivity. Start with why. The first question in Simon Sinek's famous book of the same name is to ask why. Commonly, this is the first question asked in much of philosophy. Why do we exist? Why do we believe we have free will? Why do we believe in right or wrong? So when you set your goals, you might list down the common ones, like get rich, get fit, or become famous. But the philosophical and self-help approach are the same. First, ask yourself why you want these goals. If you follow this line of questioning and challenge your own beliefs, then you can get to the core of the matter and the real reasons why you want something. In philosophy, this is known as Socratic dialogue, and in self-help, asking why 5 times is a similar approach. It can potentially reach a point where you realise that your why is actually very different from your original goal. For example, it's common for many people to say they have a goal to become rich, but if you continue to ask why they want that, the answer is usually to spend more time with friends and family or more time pursuing their passions. So the goal isn't really to have more money, the goal is to have more time. The money is just the means to the end. Nietzsche once said, "Many are stubborn in pursuit of the path they have chosen, few in the pursuit of the goal." The point is that if your real goal is to have more time, then the money isn't necessarily the only means to that end, and it'd be counterproductive to sacrifice all your free time with your loved ones in pursuit of money. So by thoroughly questioning why we want something, we can find the right goals for us and start on the right path. If you fail to do this at the beginning, then you could find yourself wasting years chasing after the wrong goals. Another key aspect in philosophy is to define things before answering more specific questions. So instead of jumping straight to, is capital punishment just? The first question is usually, what is justice? In everyday life, people usually start with specific questions without defining the key ideas. Many people will probably say they practice self-improvement because they want to be successful. Yet how many people ever pause to really ask the question, what is success? The philosophical approach could involve breaking it down to its fundamental components. Career, relationships, and financial success can all look wildly different. Therefore, it's better for us to break down what we mean by success in those different areas rather than bundling it all into one big self-improvement goal. Also, it's clearly a different thing to different people, and we need to be clear on what we define success as, rather than some universal standard to apply to everyone. If you're struggling to define what it is, even after breaking it down, then using deductive reasoning is a common approach in philosophy. For example, if you're not sure what career success looks like, then you can try asking yourself a different question. What is career failure? By listing the jobs you want to ultimately avoid, you'll be able to narrow down the careers you see successful from the ones that are left. It's important to remember that just like complex philosophical concepts, self-help goals like success are tricky to nail down entirely. But by taking a philosophical approach to it, you can gain a deeper understanding of what it means to you, which will make it far easier for you to achieve it. Another common occurrence in philosophy are thought experiments. This is where we get to the point where Descartes is asking us to imagine an evil demon which can manipulate our physical senses. It's also where many people become disillusioned with philosophy because they mistakenly fixate on the weird concept of an evil demon. The point that most people miss is that Descartes doesn't believe in evil demons. He's driving at a deeper point. If our physical senses can be confused or manipulated, then we can't fully trust them. A thought experiment is just simply imagining a hypothetical situation to learn something from it. In philosophy, they're often used to challenge beliefs, illustrate a concept, or argue for one school of thought over another. However, they are regularly used in self-help as well. A famous thought experiment sometimes used in self-help is the one of the ideal self by psychologist Carl Rogers, which relates to shaping our own lives. In this thought experiment, you're encouraged to envision the ideal version or your future self. It involves reflecting on who you aspire to be, considering the values, strengths, and aspirations you have. The goal is to create a clear and vivid image of this ideal self of yours. By doing so, you gain clarity about your personal growth goals and the direction you want to move in. It serves as a compass, guiding your thoughts, choices, and behaviours towards aligning with this desired self-image. This simple thought experiment can also motivate you to strive to become your best self. An example in self-help is Tim Ferriss's fear-setting approach. He asks himself to define his biggest fears and list down two things. Firstly, what can he do to prevent them from happening? Secondly, he imagines his fears did come true and he finds himself in that situation. Then what could he do to rectify it? By simply imagining what it'd be like if our fears came true, he argues that we can better prepare ourselves for that eventuality, rather than reacting to it if the time comes. This saves us time and worry in the future. Philosophy is littered with countless thought experiments, and whilst these may include some abstract ideas, they are powerful tools in working out complex problems. The more you read philosophy, then the more you'll appreciate the power of thought experiments. I found that incorporating philosophical perspectives into my self-help journey is one of the most effective approaches. It involves taking philosophical viewpoints and applying them practically to address the challenges I encounter in self-help. Even if a philosophical argument was originally intended for a completely different topic, the underlying principles can still be relevant and applicable to our everyday lives. One which I commonly use is Aristotle's theory of the golden mean, intended as a virtue approach in moral philosophy. Aristotle believed that to be a good person, then we must correspond to certain virtues. He argued that every virtue is a mean or average between two vices, one of excess and one of limitation. The golden mean represents the balanced position between these extremes. For example, if we look at the virtue of courage, then someone who always runs away from a fight would be seen as acting cowardly, not courageously. But the person who is always picking a fight without any thought doesn't show courage either. They would be seen as reckless. To Aristotle, courage lies between these two extremes. The person who fights when the situation arises, but does so with thought and intention. By now, you might be wondering how this applies to self-help, but this line of thinking has helped me in so many situations. Take for instance my personal fitness journey. Striving for discipline, I faced the challenge of mustering the willpower to wake up at 6 AM and go to the gym. Clearly, if I never go, then this is just me being lazy. But I've also experienced instances where I felt extremely motivated, which has led me to push myself too hard, resulting in injuries. So the two extremes here are not going to the gym at all and doing too much. So if I'm ever unsure of what to do, I try and remind myself of the two extremes and have a clear image in my head of what discipline means. It means pushing myself to work out and stick to my diet, but not to the point of injury and exhaustion. This technique is incredibly valuable when it comes to balancing the various aspects of our lives. One common observation I've made is that people often have a strong aversion or fear towards one extreme, causing them to swing towards the opposite. For example, throughout my career in office environments, I've encountered people who proudly boast they've never taken a sick day, fearing they might be perceived as someone who calls in sick too easily, like for a minor headache. But I've seen the same people then come in when they're clearly ill, spreading their illness to others and needlessly pushing themselves when the right thing to do would have been to take a day off, rest up, and be back in the office within a day or two. So if you're ever in doubt, then consider both extremes and try to define what you see as the balance between the two. The more you read philosophy, the more you can apply theories like this to your everyday life. Luckily, not all philosophical theories need to be repurposed to fit into self-help. Some come ready-made. Stoicism is quite popular because it fits perfectly into what people are looking for in self-help. I saved it for last because Stoicism has been extensively covered on YouTube, but its strong connection to self-help can't be denied. The principles of Stoicism seamlessly align with the principles of self-help, which is why they are frequently featured in self-help books. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, emotions, and actions, while accepting that external circumstances are often beyond our influence. It's about cultivating inner strength and finding peace amidst life's challenges. One of the main principles is to have a life where we're not at the mercy of our emotions like fear and anxiety. It's about managing our emotions so we can live a more peaceful life where we focus on what truly matters. One of the most famous Stoics, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, went into each day expecting to be met with people who are selfish and dishonest. By reminding himself of this fact, he was building his mental fortitude to deal with the challenges thrown at him by other people. This is a great advantage of a Stoic mindset, the resilience to the challenges of life. In the realm of self-help, Stoicism is a powerful tool. If you've ever read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, then you'll know that one of his habits is focusing on your circle of influence and ignoring what's outside of your control. And this is one of the key pillars of Stoicism. Similarly, the book The Unfair Advantage by Ash Ali and Hassan Kuba advocates that to succeed in the business world, then you should focus on the advantages you do have, not the ones you don't. Again, this is similar to a Stoic mindset, because it's about looking at what you can influence and not worrying about the advantages of others, which you can't. Whilst I don't think that Stoicism is perfect, it is a great philosophy to have in your mental toolbox, especially in challenging times. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.